down in New Orleans to become the Saints head coach soon. What's going on with that situation?
Field, he is coaching on Sunday in the Super Bowl, in the Superdome, and is shaping up for Kellen Moore to stay in New Orleans as the Saints' next head coach. Now, the Saints are doing everything they can to obey the rules and make sure that they don't do anything illegal or that the Eagles could come after them on. But barring a change of heart, it is shaping up for Kellen Moore to be the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints. The Saints will look to speak to him again next week to see if they can get a deal done. Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Rams are in the market to trade Cooper Kupp. They informed him this week that they would look to trade him immediately. He then announced that news, and the Rams know how much money is left in his contract, and they're willing to do their part to try to help move him. If we think back to last offseason, Keenan Allen went for a fourth-round pick, and there are people around the league who believe it could be a similar situation with the Rams taking on some of that salary. There's a $7.5 million roster bonus due on the 5th day of the league year, so the Rams could chip in and obviously be a part of paying some of that. And also, we should just mention that the NFL just announced that it will play a regular season game in Australia in 2026, and the Rams will play in the first game in Melbourne, Australia.
Well, Adam, I have a message for, I guess that was to be management, leadership. We are all available. The three of us that are here today in Bristol are available to travel to Melbourne in 2026. We will start booking our flights accordingly. Schefter, we'll talk to you again in just a little bit. But time now for some new sound here on NFL Live is Myles Garrett, for now, Cleveland Browns defensive end, talked to our own Mina Kimes today. Take a listen.
You know, someone who's in position to contend soon or right away. And I could come in and still play my brand of football. No, I don't want to have to change up my game too much, and I don't think they'd want to as coaching and my teammates. I think we can try to elevate each other, and I can take someone over the hump.
You know, it's no secret that quarterback has been the issue in Cleveland. When you look ahead again to like potential spots, is that something that's important to you? Joining a team where the quarterback is set and ready to compete?
Absolutely. I mean, with any playoff team or any championship team, they're going to have a quarterback, a good quarterback, and you've seen some game managers go out there with a great defense and win it all. But if you want to consistently be at the top, you got to have a really good quarterback, and that's hopefully where I'd find myself.
You can catch the entirety of this interview over on Mina's YouTube channel at 5 Eastern today. But, Schefter, what more can you add on this situation that you reported on a couple of days ago?
Well, here's the situation. Myles Garrett has told the Cleveland Browns that he would like a trade. He's gone public with that demand. Now the question is, what do the Cleveland Browns do with that information? They have been very leery of trading him. They have been public in their stance that they do not want to trade him, that they wouldn't take 2 first-round picks to trade him. And so the question becomes how dug in is Myles Garrett? How far is he willing to take this? Because right now the Browns are not of the mindset to move on from arguably the best defensive player in football, no matter how much he wants to move on. We've seen other players who have demanded trades, Lamar Jackson, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk in recent years, only to wind up staying with their respective teams. Now, those players wanted new contracts, and this is not contract-driven. This is about Myles Garrett wanting to play for what he believes to be a contender, which the Browns have not been. So it will be up to these two sides to try to figure out a solution that is not so simple to figure out right now, and it looks like it could go on for quite some time because he wants that trade. The Browns don't want to trade him. Each side is dug in at this point in time, and we'll see how it winds up playing out in the weeks to come.
Well, for those of you that think the NFL offseason begins on Monday, you are gravely mistaken, as there is no offseason in the NFL, especially when you are the man who creates the news like Adam Schefter. Hawk, let's dive into the situation a little bit more.
Yeah.
What do you think about what you heard from Myles Garrett? Obviously, we'll hear a whole lot more at 5 Eastern on Mina's show.
Of course. I mean, you know what level of player Myles Garrett is. And for someone who has done everything in his power to make the Browns a winner, and he's almost 30 years old, he is routinely the best defensive player in the NFL. It's the one thing that's always going to be missing from his resume if he doesn't get close to a Super Bowl. For me, it sounds like that more than anything, he wants a plan. If it is with the Cleveland Browns, like there has to be a detailed plan to get him out of the transfer portal, which I don't know if they're going to have for where he's at in his career because, like I said, he's one of the best defensive players of the last decade, and he probably still doesn't get talked about enough and doesn't get as much attention as his play deserves.
And it's because he's on a bad team. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it ends up working. And so, listen, if it's not about money, which is obviously what Adam's talking about, it not being about money, like he's a guy that's already made $125 million playing football, right? Like he's going to make a lot of money over the next 2 years under the current contract. So if it really is about like, look, I'm just unhappy here because I don't think we're going to be good. You heard him talk about the quarterback position for the team he's currently on. Like at some point, and he's always been, I think, a good teammate, a good guy in the locker room, a good leader for the team. So like they haven't experienced an unhappy Myles Garrett there in Cleveland before. But if he decides to go that route, like that might be too much for the team to absorb. So their posture may be, hey, look, we don't want to move him. But like at some point when you have a guy that's always been a good guy that now all of a sudden is like, look, I don't want to be here. I'm unhappy. Like get me out of here. Like you kind of are forced at that point to do something with him.
Well, we are a little over 12 weeks away from the NFL draft. Not that I'm counting, but that certainly could be a deadline that has at least some bearing for a player that would command a lot in terms of draft compensation. Welcome back to NFL Live, presented by Tostitos. We've got UFC 312 Saturday night, highlighted by 2 title fights. The middleweight and women's strawweight belts are on the line. The main card begins at 10 Eastern on pay-per-view, with the prelims at 8 Eastern on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus in English and Spanish. To order the main card, go to espnplus.com/pay-per-view. That's PPV. Time to read and react to some of the best sound around the league. First up, you may have heard of him. Travis Kelce had this to say about his prowess as a quarterback.
As a quarterback, I mean, they called me dual threat, but I don't know if I could throw it as well as I could run it. I had a bad tendency of not throwing a hitch because I knew I could pick up 5 yards with my legs. So I thought that I was going to be the next best quarterback ever and save the Cleveland Browns and, you know, do all these great things for the city of Cleveland, and found out that my place in this world was to be a tight end.
Hawk, you're a former Browns receiver.
Yeah.
Now I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what could have been?
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. But more importantly, Field, I'm thinking what could still be. I mean, we could use a very good tight end in Cleveland, Travis. Please, don't let the dream die. Call your brother Jason. Bring him. We'll take him at the center. You can convince Myles Garrett to stay. And Taylor Swift can perform in the opening home game in the new dome.
And you can take over a Monday Night Countdown. Seems like a win for everybody
What are we talking
involved.
about?
Yeah, you and Jason have a very similar demeanor and all those things.
I'll call you.
Yeah,
We'll
this is
figure it
easy.
out.
One.
Folks, buckle up, because this here's a wild one. Word on the street is that Myles Garrett, one of the baddest pass rushers in the game, might just be on the move. And guess who's in the mix? The Washington Commanders. Yeah, you heard that. Right? The Browns' star defensive end has been stirring the pot with some cryptic comments, hinting that he wants to be where the real contenders are. Now, that's got folks wondering if Cleveland's days with their defensive anchor might be numbered. Now, let's be real. Garrett ain't just some regular old edge rusher. This man is a game changer, a quarterback's worst nightmare, and he's at the peak of his career. If Washington pulls the trigger on this trade, they ain't just adding talent. They're adding a legit defensive force that could turn the tide for their squad. Pairing him up with rookie phenom Jaden Daniels could make this team something special, and the NFC better be ready for a shakeup. But hold up, y'all. The Browns ain't letting Garrett walk for pocket change. If Washington wants him, they better be ready to cough up some serious assets. We're talking premium draft picks, maybe even a top-tier player or two. And that raises the million-dollar question. Is this the move that puts the Commanders over the top? If Garrett does land in D.C., the whole NFL landscape could shift. Overnight, offenses would have to game plan like crazy to handle that kind of firepower coming off the edge. But here's the thing. Does Washington have what it takes to pull this off? And more importantly, would Garrett be willing to bet his prime years on the Commanders' future? One thing's for sure, folks. This story ain't over. So, what do y'all think? Should Washington go all in for Garrett, or is he better off sticking it out in Cleveland? Let's hear it.